Good evening to Flowing in the Spirit. This is our second episode, and we have a very special guest tonight from Fort Myers, Florida. She is a praise and worship leader, has a voice like an angel, and has been fighting a lot of different medical situations over the past 10 years. So I figured there's no one better than to talk to a Navy SEAL spirit fighter. And she's even been given words to that effect. So sometimes flowing in the spirit requires a lot more than what people think. And so I figured that tonight, the best way to get to episode 2 is to let you all hear from someone that is not only flowing in the spirit, but is probably alive thanks to the Father and Son in working with her. So Suzie, give us a little background about you. This is
Hi.
Suzie Davis.
My name is Suzie, and I'm 40 years old, and I've lived in Florida my whole life. And about 10 years ago, I've had some like allergy things throughout my whole life and little very minor illness things that I dealt with. But about 10 years ago, I had a pretty traumatic, toxic black mold exposure, which really sent my body on a extreme, just threw everything out of whack. And so the past 10 years have been difficult. And it took me a long time, even 10 years ago, to find out what was wrong and what was going on, because I was having all these severe symptoms and doctors were just kind of giving me medications to treat symptoms. And I was feeling worse and worse. So I'm really thankful because I've walked with the Lord ever since I was very young, and I felt equipped and just really thankful that I knew God as I started to walk through this journey. And over the past 10 years, I've learned a lot, especially this year.
Very good. I met Suzie. I was very fortunate to meet Suzie. She was doing the praise and worship in Florida and Destin. And it was set up with a 5-day conference that we had over there. And since I haven't gotten permission to throw out the name yet, I won't speak on that. But I will say it's a very good gentleman that has a lot of love and heart for God. And in meeting with Suzie, we had some great discussions. We've had a chance to attend another conference here in Houston. And the most interesting thing that I found is Suzie has such a high passion for the Lord that, she's been able in tough situations to get information that even her own doctors haven't been able to provide her, and been able to get through some, we might say, life-threatening situations. And as you can tell, she's alive and well and beautiful, and we'll thank that to the Lord. And so right now, Suzie, kind of give everybody an idea of what you learned, how to engage our Father and Son in us in the Spirit, and how it's been beneficial for you.
Yeah. I've had relationship with God for years, and I think that can look a lot of different ways. And even when I had my daughter, again, about right before I had that exposure 10 years ago, right before that, about a year before that, I remember I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was sitting on my couch at home, and I was just kind of journaling. Like, that's what I knew to do. That was my time with God. It was kind of like read the word, pray, journal. And I remember sitting there, and I read this book, and this woman was giving a testimony about, she had written, I am listening, and how she started to hear the voice of God through just writing those simple words. So I thought, well, I'm going to do this, So I write, I am listening, ... And I just kind of sat there. And at the time, I wasn't somebody who really necessarily heard God or saw or, really knew how to walk in the Spirit in that way. But I just remember hearing kind of that still small voice. And in my spirit, I heard, I love you. And that's all I heard. It was very simple, but I heard God tell me he loved me, and I wrote it down. And I just remember like feeling it like really go into me. And like, I knew it was God. You know, I didn't need to hear an audible voice. I didn't need someone else to hear it for me. I knew that connection, you know? And so I think that was really important. I look back on that moment and I think about how God had met me in that moment and how I started to really develop just the senses, you know, the hearing, the seeing, the knowing what God is speaking. And because, you know, I can fast forward. And so what I would do is I would sit almost every day and I would just kind of exercise that. I would exercise what I knew. And that's what I knew was just to write, I'm listening. And I remember hearing words for like, you know, my church. And then I started to hear things for more than just myself. So then that's kind of what I operated in for a long time. And then even when I sit down to worship and sing, I've never seen an open-eyed vision, but I see in my mind's eye a lot. You know, if I like close my eyes, you know, I can see like in my imagination or however you want to label it. But when I sit down to play and sing, the Lord shows me things. And if I'm singing something over someone, or, you know, if you start praying for someone, I'll see things, I'll hear things. So the reason I'm sharing this is just kind of how I've learned how to operate in the spirit, how I've learned to kind of flow, how I've learned to try to develop my communication with God, and how it started from just little simple things. And it really is still really simple. You know, it's not complicated. And so this year when I got hit really hard with just, I mean, not to go into all the details, but the major things were major digestive issues. Just basic functioning in life was difficult. Sleeping, eating, you know, I'm talking about like control within the stomach. It was like everything was out of control. And not just for a week, not just for 2 weeks, but for months. And I went through countless antibiotics, countless diagnostics, and all that to say is I'm walking through this, you know, I'm obviously like the emotions get high, you're sick, you don't feel like seeking God when you're running to the bathroom and when you're feeling like you're gonna die, you know, you're crying out, but it's hard to feel peace and it's hard to feel clarity when you're like scrambling. So, you know, Eddie, you know, we met, and it's kind of funny how, well, not funny, but, you know, God puts people in your life for different seasons, I think, to walk through things with you and help guide you. And the Lord really used you, Eddie, to just be a friend to me. And even though, you know, you live in another state and we hadn't known each other that long, sorry, I want to backtrack about one thing that I think is important. I received a prophetic word this year. Maybe it was in March. I had been sick for about a month, and I received a prophetic word about ascension and about these like ecstasies in God and these multiple words. And all that to say, I you know, followed some different, you know, some different people that I've listened to, some different ministries, and I ended up getting involved within an ascension group that Eddie does too. And so there are these multiple things that started connecting, just that I felt like God was encouraging me and showing me that I can, you know, hear in the spirit in new ways, that he can show me in new ways, and it can look different, if that makes sense. So I don't know if that's clarifying anything more, but basically there were some more connections there. And just as a friend, you know, I would call you, Eddie, and I would just be beside myself. I'd be emotional. I'd be frustrated, because one of the things that I've dealt with is severe, almost like allergic reactions, where if I eat something or a certain chemical, I'm highly sensitive, and my throat almost get anaphylaxis, and my throat would start almost closing up, and nothing would help. Like antihistamines wouldn't help. I don't use an EpiPen, but otherwise I'd be using one like every day, you know? So what that does is it's a spiraling of fear at that point, because your body's freaking out, and then your mind, you start to get afraid. So then the fear, the anxiety, and then the actual physical symptoms. So there are many times that I just, you know, I didn't know what to do. Doctors didn't even know what to do. I didn't want to go to the ER every day. You know, that wasn't going to fix my problem. So I would try to get myself calm. And the Lord really used you, Eddie, to just help, you know, with just breathing in the spirit and asking God, going to the Lord. It's really simple, but sometimes I'm just grateful for God using other people to go with you. You don't have to do it by yourself. You can. And so we would just close our eyes and enter into the kingdom and see what God would want to show us and who is there, and would we see Jesus, and would we see, who Paul, I don't know, whoever God wanted to use to speak. And so it was really interesting because I got to where every day for a while, and I still do this, but it's a little different now because I feel like it's always changing, and it's always kind of like God is, I don't know, moving it about, flowing with the Spirit. Mm-hmm. The flow is always kind of adapting and changing. And, when you first start, what's cool too is when you do it with someone that or you're a friend, and there's that accountability, you'll say, I see this. Are they seeing the same thing? Are they seeing something different? And you just got to be honest. You either see it or you don't, or you hear it or you don't. And if you don't, it's okay. Like, you're not at fault for it. But it was a way to get confirmation, because I would literally be asking questions like, my first question would always be like, am I okay? And I would just hear the Lord say, just reassure me, you're okay. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And it would bring that anxiety level down, bring that fear level down, and get into a state of, even if I was reacting, at least my emotions would come down to where I feel like I could get more clarity. And I would ask specific questions, and for me, I have so many supplements and so many things and eating foods, should I eat this today? And I would hear no, or I would hear yes. And so I can say this, when we hear in the Spirit, do we always hear 100%? Do I? Probably not, but I know my heart and my intent is pure, and it's to know God, and it's to hear Him. So I feel like I can't go wrong. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like when your heart is to hear Jesus, and I feel like if we're off a bit, we ask again, we get redirected. And so just to say that, because I think there's a lot of insecurity and doubt about hearing God's voice. We're afraid we're going to get it wrong. We're afraid we're going to miss it. And so a lot of people don't even want to try, because it's almost like it complicates things too much, or, there's that fear factor. But God really used these moments of just coming before Him. And I can say for sure, 100%, it definitely helped me get to a place of peace. There were nights when I felt like my throat was closing up and I didn't even know if I was going to be able to sleep, and it would help me rest and get the sleep I needed. And in the morning, if I woke up and I still felt awful, well, I would start all over again. And I would get myself in that place and say, okay, God, what for today? Do I need to call someone? Do I need to take this? Do I need to do nothing? And there's no wrong question, right? There's no wrong question. You can. And so what was interesting is I really started with yes or no questions, because I felt like if I just go into the kingdom and I say, what are you saying? It's a little overwhelming. Not to say God can't answer you that way, but for me, I felt like I needed specific questions. Just yes or no questions. I just started with that. Did I get a yes? Did I get a no? Did I get a firm yes? There's different ways you can feel it out. And so it's really opened up communication, I feel like, a lot more. And so now, even today, I was having a moment where I was doubting something, frustrated with a situation, feeling like, was I missing it? And I didn't feel like I had to go through this long encounter with God. Just wherever I was, I just set my intention on Him, and I just was kind of asking the Lord some questions, and I got answers immediately, with what I needed for the moment. And it's walking with God, it's flowing with Him. It's getting our answers from Him. It's not getting it from our logic or our understanding, or thinking this is how it's always worked. And that's hard. That's hard when you've always, let's say for me, if I've eaten I'm just going to say an apple. I don't have problems with apples, but if I ate an apple always, and I always had an allergic reaction, well, then I don't want to touch that apple. But if I go to the Spirit and I'm like, Lord, am I supposed to touch it? And he says, no, well, then I don't, but I don't know. But not to say that I never can't. I think it's just pulling me out of these old patterns and these old cycles, and realizing just because it was doesn't mean that that's always the answer. And that God, every day there are new mercies. Every day there's something new. And to be patient, to be patient in the process. So sorry, I'm really talking a lot, but the communication and how God has developed that just really organically. Like, I didn't go read a book on it. I didn't go seeking after it. I did get a prophetic word, and my heart was to know God deeper. My heart was, Lord, I want to be well. I know that you don't want me to suffer. I know that you don't want me to be going in and out of 70 doctors' offices, spending all my money, frustrated, crying every day, feeling like I'm going to die. And that's what it's felt like all year long, just to be totally honest. And that's not God's heart. Sickness is not from God, but in the midst of this, and I believe God could totally and completely manifest healing in my body at any moment, completely. And I believe he will. But as I'm walking this out, I want to be a son of God that knows how to walk with the Holy Spirit. Right. And again, I don't get it all perfect, but we got to continue to start and try and do what we have and help people and help each other and just be there for each other. We don't have to have it all figured out for one another, but I know for you, Eddie, as my friend, just saying, hey, call me if you need me, and not allowing my situation to totally rattle your emotions. So thank you, Eddie.
Well, you're welcome, Suzie. And I will advise you, if you're going to help somebody like I made myself available for Suzie, is I have a very good ability to know the Christ Spirit in me and be able to know I'm communicating with that Spirit. So I gave Suzie full freedom to communicate whatever it is, so that I would get a reading from my spirit about what she was going through, and it wouldn't get me into a fear mode or anything else. And, that's the beauty of flowing in the Spirit, because if you have people that can flow in the Spirit, they can flow with you. They can flow with anybody that has got a relationship with the Father and Son that basically will bring them peace. And if you have faith, walking into the unknown of the future now becomes a journey. And when you know that you're dealing with the Father and the Son, the Christ Spirit, the people that basically the Father gave us his breath and breathed life into us, then we can practice breathing and seeing it as his breath, which, we've done a few times. Whenever I get a little anxious or a little worried, I'll sit down and breathe in through my nose and take a deep breath and say it's the breath of the Father coming in, giving me peace, getting all through my body. And I'll do that to the point where I feel relaxed and at peace. And a lot of times that's how we'd start off between me and Suzie, is just getting at rest. And the most exciting thing that I've noticed about it, which I've learned in helping Suzie, is that I could observe what was going on, but I've been able to perfect not having any judgment or opinion about what I see. Because I noticed if I attached an emotion or feeling to it, then I brought in another aspect that I wasn't trying to bring in. I'm leaving the Father and Jesus and the Spirit to work with Suzie and give her the right answers. I don't want to interfere with her answers. All I want to do is, if I'm getting something as well, confirm or help her. And, when you're going through something, she's got a beautiful daughter and she's alone now, but there are times when she doesn't have anyone to share about what's going on or talk about it. And it's great to go in the Spirit, but when you have others that you can do that with, it really helps build the faith, because not only do you know that God's protecting you and taking care of you, but you've also got someone on the human side that is available. And that's what I was talking about before. Jesus was the perfect example of being fully human and fully spirit. So he was kind of the leading example of what we're capable of. And now what Suzie's been doing and what I've been doing is perfecting that flow in the Spirit. Suzie, let me ask you a couple of more questions here. You've got such a beautiful daughter, and I mean, you've told me how she's actually been able to walk in the Spirit herself, and you've gone to some things together where there've been, praise and worship and prayer and everything. And that girl just seems to pick it up so much easier than we do. And if you could kind of share a little bit about that, I think that might help some people, even with their parents or the children, understand how you can flow in a family in the Spirit. It's not just an individual thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think ever since McKenna's been born, ever since my daughter's been born, hold on. Someone's trying to call me. Ever since she's been born, I've tried to just engage her in the Spirit, and it's looked a lot of different ways her whole life. I mean, for a long time, the Lord was really using me to evangelize, like out on the streets or pray for healing. And whenever I would feel led to go up to somebody, she would just come with me, and she didn't have to do anything, but I just wanted her to feel a part. It's not like I have something special that she doesn't have. We all carry God. We all know him, and he can use us all, right? I'm just thankful that I can see her personal desire and personal hunger and personal yieldedness, to God. And I just try to encourage that and create opportunity for that and communicate about it. And I mean, whether it's sitting down and praying before a meal, or we take communion together a lot, and I would, pray something or release something about communion, and she would, I would say, okay, you share something, anything. There's no right or wrong answer, right? Like, it's kind of like when you pray, So I think it's opening space for them. I know of so many people within the church that feel uncomfortable praying in front of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, it's like just making people feel comfortable to be themselves in God, and whatever that looks like. My daughter's very creative. She loves the arts. She loves singing and writing and drama. I mean, all of art. And it's fun to see what God creates through her. And I'm just someone who loves the glory. Like, I love worship. I love revival meetings. I love, I don't care what denomination it is. If the presence is pure and the heart is there, and it's not about a performance, but it's about seeking the heart of God. Like, I want to be there and I want to encounter God. And I've had the opportunity to take my daughter with me to many things. And within the past couple of years, I've seen her really touched by the presence of God, and that's, there were a couple moments where I could tell she was a little nervous. Like, if I wanted to go up front and respond just to the invitation of whatever it was, and I would kind of bring her with me, and she'd be kind of like, I don't want to fall over or whatever manifestation she was a little nervous about. And I was like, just trust me, God's not going to hurt you. You're not going to get hurt. You just go and receive what God wants to do. And that can look a lot of different ways, And I mean, for me, I'm somebody who I fall out all the time. That's just, and I enjoy it. And then for her, so she had a really great encounter recently where she really, I looked over, because I was having my own moment with God, and I looked over her and I could just see God really touching her. She didn't want to leave. She didn't want to leave the meeting. she wanted to meet the guy who was leading the meeting because she was so impacted. And that moment for me, I was going after my own healing. I was, on my own needs, and who cares about those things at that point? Like, I'm just so excited to see my daughter have an authentic, real connection with God, and she didn't have to tell me anything she saw or heard, but I could see it, that the deepest places of her heart was being loved on and touched by God. Nobody prayed over her. Nobody spoke anything. She didn't get a prophetic word. She was just in the presence of God, being touched by God. And she said to me after that, now I know why you like to come to all these meetings, because she had her own moment. Right. So many times she's like, why do you go to these things all the time? Where I'll drive 10 hours to go to one meeting and like turn around, because it's addicting. The presence of God like that, but we don't have to be in a corporate meeting to experience that. We can be home by ourselves and cultivate that atmosphere in our homes and with our families. And that's what God has for us. And it's great. It's great to be involved in an amazing church and community. And God wants that for us too. And I can't say that I've always had that, to be honest. It's been very hard for me to find local churches that I really connect with. I feel like a lot of it is just me and the Lord at home. But I have made connections with other people in other states and through, these Zooms or whatever. There's just a lot of different ways we can connect. But our kids, they're not left out. I don't care if they're 5 years old. God has a way to connect with them, and they see so purely. They engage God in such a pure way. That's without fear, really, in a lot of ways.
Very good. Well, we're going to take just a short intermission here for about 5 minutes. Then we're going to come back and wrap it up. So if you would just take a few minutes, and we're going to allow you to get some water or do whatever you need to do. Then we'll come back and we'll finish it. This is something that I know all of you can use and basically incorporate into your lives if you haven't already done it.
You've given me everything. You've given me everything. So what do I have need of? And what am I looking for when I have everything? In you I have everything. You are my everything. Not to the left, not to the right, not to a side, but just straight ahead. Not to the left, not to the right, but straight to you, God, straight to you, God. You're my everything. I have no need. And you've planted
Well, welcome back. Hope you had a few minutes to take a restroom break or get something quick bite to eat. We're getting ready to wrap it up. One of the last things I think Suzie's covered real well, how God and the Spirit, the Father and Son in her, in us, is able to communicate and to help in a lot of different situations, family situations, individual situations. And I believe that when you're able to flow in the spirit of knowing, you can rest your mind and not have to figure out everything. And what happened with me was when I realized that I knew the voice of Jesus. And once I actually identified with that voice in me, and he's referred to as Yeshua, the Christ Spirit, a lot of those things. But when I knew I was flowing with him in the Spirit, I get a peace coming over me that is not the peace of the earth. It's a peace that is so good. It's like you said, if you have it in your house, you really know you're safe. You know that you're who you are, and you're going to be able to take care of any problem, any situation, and basically let go of fear. So my walk began letting go of fear and trusting the Spirit voice in me with that connection to start to move forward and give my mind rest. I didn't have to investigate it. I didn't have to figure it out. I'll give one example one time that happened that was really crazy. And it was a series of events, and it was at the grocery store. I was walking around in the grocery store, and I just happened to walk up an aisle, and there was $20 laying there on the ground. Well, I thought $20 is nice, and so I just, this is my early stages. I asked the Lord, does somebody need this $20? And I got this peace coming over me, and I said, okay, that means this belongs to somebody. So I went to the cashier, and the cashier looked at me like I was crazy when I said I found $20 and I think somebody lost it. And he looked at me, and, I was actually that day I was buying some flowers and stuff for my wife. So yeah, that could have paid for the flowers and whatever. But the guy said, yeah, let me go talk to the manager. So the manager basically came over to me and he said, what's up? And I said, well, I found this $20 on this floor over on the aisle over there by the meat. And he said, oh my gosh, this lady had just come up to me and she had her last $20 that she needed to be able to buy some stuff for her that evening. And she lost her $20 and didn't know where it was. So he said, I'll give it to her, but would you mind giving it to her? And I said, no, I don't mind. I mean, is she still here? And he says, yes, because she couldn't buy it. So she was trying to call somebody to come and bring her some more money. So I said, okay, well, I went over to her and I gave her the $20. And you'd think I gave that lady $1 million. She was so thankful. She actually started crying and made me tear up. And, I gave her a hug and, she just kept saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. But it's those small things like that that give you the confidence that when you really are connected with the source, which I feel is the Father and Son in us, that basically we're flowing in a supernatural way on this earth. And it's not the norm for a human to find money and give it back to whoever it belongs to. Don't get me wrong, there are people that do that, and I think that's great. But I felt it on my heart that it belonged to somebody, and sure enough, it was such a blessing that, I was walking on a cloud after I left. So anyway, that was how I started connecting, was through that peace. And from there, I've had, like you mentioned, things that will come in. I've had birds start tweeting to me and different things, and then all of a sudden they'll catch my attention about something that had I not thought about, I could have had some serious situations crop up. So when you're in the flow, I believe God looks after you. You're totally aware. You're in your intent for the moment. You've got to be focused on the moment. You cannot be looking behind. You cannot be looking forward. And what happened yesterday, like Suzie said, is not meaning it's going to happen at this moment today. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. If you want to elaborate that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, it is exciting how I think we're all uniquely created, and we all get to encounter God differently and hear God differently. And when we hear other people talk about how they encounter God, you feel these similarities, you feel these same things, but then you can see the diversity of how God speaks so differently. And peace is definitely, who God is. God is peace. And that's how he manifests. He doesn't manifest with fear. He doesn't manifest with worry and anxiety. I know the dream life, so many dreams that I've had where I've been like, is that from God? Was that from, where's that from? And, what did you feel in the dream? Did you feel peace? Did you feel frightened? And so I think the voice of God, it carries peace. It carries rest. And it doesn't carry confusion. Mm-hmm. And if you feel unrest, I know there are times when I feel uncertain what God is speaking on like specific things. And I've just learned that I don't need to be in a rush, and that I need to just wait until I feel that peace, and wait until I know, and be intent, not just like waiting and like whatever, God will find me, but waiting with intent to not, I think just to show God, hey, I'm not pushing, and I'm not in a rush. Like, I'm patient on your voice. I'm patient on what you're speaking. And I know one way that God has spoken to me, not just like with sitting and listening, but I would get like prophetically, or like when it comes to praying for people or reaching out to people, like I'll be at the grocery store somewhere, and I don't even really get like clear words of knowledge or prophetic words for people. I just get this like drawing, and this like the Lord will highlight someone to me, and I'm like, I have to go up to that person. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I know I have to go up to them. And most of the time I go up to them and I say, hey, I have no clue what to say to you. And I literally say that to them. But I'm like, God is really drawing me to you, because I always believe he wants to encourage them, and he wants to speak life over them. And he wants them to know that he sees them. Right. And even if it's literally just for that. And so that's one way I know that God has kind of developed that knowing for me, because I tend to feel things. I can just feel that. I don't know how to describe it, because it's just a feeling that I have, that I know it's God. And there's times that I've disobeyed it. There's times when I knew that's what God was telling me to do, but I was like, I don't really want to, I don't like, whatever my own personal insecurity. And I just remember my spirit would feel very crushed, because I knew that I knew it was God. And so I think in our relationship with God, we get that choice. We get that choice if we want to lean into it and obey that still small voice, whether it's right or wrong, or if we're going to disregard it, and we're going to ignore it, and we're going to maybe even pretend like we didn't hear it. Because I think a lot of the time, sometimes we've done that. But I know that God is excited to speak to us, and God is excited to work with us and co-labor with us. And if we're intent, moment by moment, day by day, on just our interaction with him, our communion with him, and our communion with him with other people, then we'll develop that, and we'll feel that peace. And it takes faith. It just takes the measure of faith that we have to engage God in that. And again, I don't think there's not a formula. There's not a perfect way to do it. But ultimately, like, do we want to flow in the Spirit? Do we want to walk out life with God? And if we do, then I think we're willing to try, and we're willing to ask questions, and have people that you trust, and that have experience, that have walked through it, and you can ask questions. And I think too, you know the character of God. If you know the word of God and you know the character of God, then that is his voice. So if it's something that is like totally against the Bible, well, it's probably not God's voice.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's some pretty like easy ways to kind of decipher, like, is it God? Is it not? But I think peace, you know, and all those things, and praise God that he wants to share his voice with everybody, young, old, rich, poor. It doesn't, you know, there's no limit, and we all have access. Jesus is the doorway, and Jesus has given us all access. And if we go through that doorway, then I really believe there's limitless possibility and, you know, healing, freedom, resources. Like, I just am excited because I'm like, Lord, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, what's next? Every morning we have the opportunity to say, what's next for today? How do you want to flow with me? What do you want to share? And so, yeah, it's exciting.
Well, you hit on some very good points, and it's been a very pleasant evening. I felt the frequency coming from you just even on the Zoom, and the atmosphere is all good, and we are electrical beings, and I believe that the Father and Son operate out of a frequency that is basically brought life to the entire planet. And if we operate in that spirit freedom, I call it the Christ consciousness, then we have the ability to help others, you know, just like we've had a chance to work together on situations that you're going through, or to help other people or whatever. And you never look at it as something that, you know, is difficult, or you don't know if you can do it or not, because you already know the fact that you're encountering this person at this particular time, and you flow with what you're receiving from inside out, not outside in. Down the road, you start seeing the benefits. And I mean, we're meant to be together. God wants his children working together, not a bunch of people operating on their own egos, doing whatever they want and forgetting everybody else. And you and I have both had the luxury of experiencing that love of unity with each other as well as with him, and that oneness is out of this world. So with that, I'd say if we can just get other people to engage it, we can transform this world, and we can make it a better place, even for our children that are getting ready to take over as adults. And I want to thank you for your time tonight, Suzie. And for those of you that would like to ask any questions or anything else, we do have the Facebook, I believe, site that you can ask questions to for Flowing in the Spirit, or if it's a YouTube, you can send questions on that. We'll make sure Suzie gets it, and we thank you for your time, Suzie, and you have a blessed evening. Yes, and if you did like tonight's episode, please hit the like and subscribe, and we'll make sure and keep you with the latest special people like Suzie and so many others that God has blessed us to know and work with. And let's just change this community. Let's change our united country. Let's change the world. And we can do that together with God and Jesus and everything that he's put inside of us to handle every situation. So once again, good night. Thank y'all. See you next week.
This is what I will do in the last days. I will pour out my spirit on everybody, and cause your sons and daughters to prophesy, and your young men will see visions, and your old men will experience dreams from God. Acts 2:17, the Passion Translation. I'll pour pure water over you and scrub you clean. I'll give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I'll remove the stone heart from your body and replace it with a heart that's God-willed, not self-willed. I'll put my spirit in you and make it possible for you to do what I tell you and live by my commands. Ezekiel 36:26, the Message. I will put my law within them, write it on their hearts, and be their God. And they will be my people. They will no longer go around setting up schools to teach each other about God. They'll know me firsthand. The dull and the bright, the smart and the slow, I'll wipe the slate clean for each of them. I'll forget they ever sinned. God's decree. Jeremiah 31:33-34, the Message.